this called test type, which is where we would select either lab dip or shade band, whichever is appropriate. In my case, it's going to be a lab dip, so I'm going to select that. And because I had two samples, Submit C and Submit D, I want to click this button, Copy Data, and that will copy all the data that I have here on this form. I'll page down to my next Submit, and I'll make use of the button called Paste Data, and it will just make sure that the data I had entered for Submit C is pasted into the form for Submit D. So now I have duplicate data for both of the submits, the only difference being the color of the actual lab dips. Now in our previous process, at this point, we would proceed by clicking on the email button, and that would open up our Outlook and attach the QTX form so that we could communicate these two lab dip submits directly to Walmart for their evaluation. With the new process that will be implemented with the use of Datacolor Track, instead of using the email button, you have two new buttons at the bottom of your screen. One is called Track Current, and one is Track Desktop. The difference between those two, they both send information to Datacolor Track. Track Current button sends only the current standard and the associated lab dips. Track Desktop sends everything that's on your desktop. So if you have input 5 jobs, it will send all 5 of those jobs directly into Datacolor Track simultaneously. Because we only have been working with one job, I'm going to click on Track Current, and it will take us directly into Datacolor Track. So let's proceed with that. And you will go through and be able to visually see what happens when Datacolor Track is opened onto my desktop. This is the login screen for Datacolor Track, and this is the first screen that you will see when you are opening Track for the very first time. If it is already open on your desktop, and you just minimize it and leave it open at all times, you will not have to go back in and log in each time. But I wanted you to see this login screen because we just wanted to reinforce the issue that we can establish multiple user logins, and this allows you to establish different functionality for each login and to configure the screen setup for the different logins that you set up. And that way for each user, they may have their screens configured differently depending upon their work and the way they like to visualize things on their screen. I'm going to log in as the administrator, so as soon as I click on OK, I will open up the Datacolor Track screen. The first thing I would like to show you is just that this is the particular job, this lovely lilac is the job that we just established within Datacolor Tools, and we sent that job over to Datacolor Track, so now it is inside of the Datacolor Track database. Now, before we proceed with discussing that any further, I would like to just talk a little bit about what you see here in the Datacolor Track screen. This is the primary screen with which you will work on a daily basis. We've got a menu bar at the top, and then it is followed by a menu bar that has various icons, and all of these are functions that we'll discuss as we go through the basic training of Datacolor Track. The main portion of the screen here is the job list, and each row is associated with a various job. So you can see the one that is currently highlighted, you see is standard name, Lovely Lilac, season is spring 2006, the brand name, the department name, the supplier. All of the items that we input within the Datacolor Tools system now shows up in the Datacolor Track database. So all of that information is available to you here. Then down below, the next section is what is called the batch section, and that's where we would see a list of either the lab dips or the shade bands that are associated with the standard. And then the bottom section is where we see the details, additional details on that particular job. So for instance, you can see, the country of origin, the style number, any other information. And you can configure what you see, the columns of data that are shown here in the configuration screen and in the view screen. You can set that up so that you can control what you see. So let's talk a little bit about how to navigate through the track screens. As I mentioned earlier, each row contains a job. And if we want to select a given job, we just click on the little gray box that is out to the left of that job. It highlights that job, and if there are associated batches for that job, they show up here in this batch section. You can see that the number of columns we have here is too numerous to show at one time without scrolling from left to right. Thus, we have the scroll bar that allows us to see all of those columns as we scroll from side to side. To reorganize the screen, if, for instance, instead of having standard name as the first column, if you preferred to have the season as the first column, you can go to the column header, click on it, hold it down, then just relocate that to the far left-hand corner. You can also move the brand name by doing the same thing, and you can reconfigure the columns into any order that you would like. Okay. If we wanted to return them to the original position, we would click this refresh button, and everything would go back into the order in which it was originally set up. As we scroll from left to right, you'll notice that we lose the first columns on the left-hand side. And that means that once we have passed standard name off the left-hand side of the screen, we no longer can determine what we're looking at. So what we find a lot of people like to use is this pin down feature. All of the column names in the column header have a pin, like a push pin, out to the right-hand side. If we click on that, that push pin goes from pointing left to pointing down. That means that this column has now been pinned into place. So as I scroll from left to right, that particular column stays in place. And we can pin multiple columns if we like so that we can scroll back and forth. Okay. I'll just go back and undo that for this moment. The data is currently organized in this particular view based on the job date. And the way I am able to tell that is by looking in this job date column header. You'll notice there is an arrow that is pointing down. That shows us that the job date column is what is being used currently to organize our data. It is organized in a manner such that the most recent update is shown first, and the oldest piece of data, or the job that is the oldest, is at the bottom of our database there. Now, we are only working with 23 jobs. You can see that in this very bottom left-hand portion of the screen. We only have 23 jobs currently displayed. But you can imagine if you had 230 jobs, you would want to make sure that you could easily reorganize the data in a manner that would work best for you so that you could find the jobs that need your immediate attention. If instead of organizing items by job date, you preferred to have them organized by standard name, we can just click once on the standard name column header. Now you'll notice that all 23 of those jobs have been reorganized in alphabetical order, starting with A, going to Z. The arrow is pointing up, meaning they are organized in ascending order. If we click on that same column header again, they now will be reorganized in descending order, but again, based on standard name. You can use that function just by clicking in the column header, and it immediately reorganizes everything. So if you wanted to see, for instance, the brand Catalina, all the jobs that you had in process for that, you can click on the brand column header and go to Catalina and find those particular jobs. Again, if I want to reorganize them based on job date, if I just click the refresh button, it takes me back to that original setting. So now the most recent job is displayed